This lesson is about surface area of a right rectangular prism. Our first example shows a rectangular prism that's made out of 1 centimeter cubes. The question asks, what is the surface area of this prism? Well, basically, we could count all the faces of the prism that has been created, or we can just think and say, well, I know that this side over here, the front, let's say this is the front, is the exact same size as the back. So basically, I have two sides that have 6 squares. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So the front and the back in total gives me 12 squares because 2 times 6 gives me 12. Now, I also know that this side is the exact same size as the other side at the back. So then I could say that I have two sides that have 2 faces on each side. So 2 times 2 gives me 4. And then I look at the top. Well, the top and the bottom would also have the same dimension. And the dimensions of this, by the looks of it, has 3 squares. So I've got 2 sides that have 3 squares on each side. That gives me 6. Well, if I just add all of that together, then that would give me the surface area of the whole prism. So the basic concept of surface area is you find the area of each side and then you add them together. 4 plus 6 would give me 10, and 10 plus 12 would give me 22. So 22 centimeters squared would be the surface area, and we use SA to represent surface area. So the surface area of our rectangular prism is 22 centimeters squared. Now, if we look at this one, this looks like a box. This is also a right rectangular prism. It is made up of 6 different rectangles. The surface area of the entire prism is the sum of the areas of the 6 rectangles. To explain that a little bit more, if I was to cut, let me go back to this. If I was to cut this rectangle or this prism and flatten it, this is what it would look like. This is called a net. If ever the question asks you to draw a net or to sketch a net, this is what it wants you to do. So if we count, we got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 rectangles that form this rectangular prism. Now, other things we can identify is that this rectangle, let's say I could call it A, is equal to this one here as well. So that's also an A. So just like, say it's the front and the back are both the same. Now, this rectangle and this one are also both the same size. They have the same dimensions. And then these two here as well, which would be our sides, also have the same dimensions. Now, if we are asked to put the dimensions for each surface, so each face of the prism onto the face, well then this is what it would look like. We learned in the first lesson that the area of a rectangle is length times the width. So if I wanted to find the area of just this rectangle, it would be the length times the width. These are the dimensions, 4 times 8. The middle one, the length is 8, the width is 6. So 6 times 8 would give me the area of this rectangle. Now on the last page, I had said that this top rectangle, which I had named A, would be equivalent to this one. So you can see that the 2 dimensions are the same. They're both 4 by 8. And these 2 are both the same. They're both 6 by 8. And these 2 are both the same. They're both 6 by 4. Now, if we would actually multiply those numbers together, it would give us the surface area of each face. So 32 centimeters squared is the area of just this rectangle. 48 centimeters squared is the area of just this one. 32 centimeters squared is the area of this one. And this one as well is 48, and then these two here are 24. Now, basically, to find our surface area, we just have to add all those together. So here it says, add up the areas of each face. Well, you can see that we have two that are 32. Those were my A's, my side A's. Two that are 48, which were my side B's. And two that are 24, which are my side C's. We add all that together, and we see that the surface area is 208 centimeters squared. Now, we can also develop a formula to help us figure that out. So we know that we have two faces that are 4 times 8. We have two faces that are 6 times 8. And we have two faces that are 6 times 4. So we could call them A, B, and C. Or let's just say if I have my rectangular prism in front of me, I'll go back to our initial page. I can classify this as my front. I could classify this as the side. And I could say that this is the top. Now the front and the back both have the same dimensions. So we could say that 2 times the area of the front would equal the area of the front and the back both together, plus 2 times the area of the side, and that would consider the two sides, plus 2 times the area of the top, and that would be the top and the bottom. So basically, if I'm stating that I've got 2 sides here, 2 sides here, and 2 sides here, that incorporates the 6 sides that are within my rectangular prism. Now, we're going to use this formula with the next examples that I have. So this one says, find the surface area of this rectangular prism. Well, if I remember, so remember surface area is represented with SA. And if I follow this last formula that I just used, so let's remember this one here. I'll just put it underneath. All right, so we have, oh, that's not going to work. We can't see it. Okay, so let's go by memory. Now I said 2 times area of the front. Now have a look at that rectangular prism and identify which one would be the front. Now it really doesn't matter which one you use. But normally the one that we can see would be our front. Now the dimensions of this front, so it's 2 times the area of the front. The dimensions are 15 by 8. We go 2 times 15 times 8, plus 2 times the area of the side. Now the side, this is my side here, so the length here is 10, and we could say that the width is 8. It's not written there, but that is 8 because the 8 is written on the other side. So 2 times 10 times 8 plus 2 times the area of the top. Now you could use the top or you can use the bottom. Since the dimensions are written at the bottom here, it might be easier to use the bottom. But we could see that the length and the width of the bottom are 15 and 10. So we go 2 times 15 times 10. Now, remember our BEDMAS rule, so you have to multiply before you add. Now you could plug all of this into your calculator and push equals, and it would give you the right answer. Or we could do it in steps. So if I go 2 times 15 times 8, that gives me 214. 2 times 10 times 8 gives me 160. And 2 times 15 times 10 gives me 300. Now if I add all those together, it gives me 700 centimeters squared. We always use the same formula. Just always remember that it's 2 times the area of the front plus 2 times the area of the side plus 2 times the area of the top. And so with this next example, we'll continue to use that same formula. Now this one is a little bit different. It wants us, let's say we're going to paint this box. What is the total surface area that needs to be painted? Well, you got it. There's a crack here, which means there's a small little part, a surface area here that we are not going to paint. To answer this question, we're going to have to find the surface area of the whole box. But then we'll have to find the area of this small little rectangle here, and then subtract that from the whole area of the box. Now, if you notice that the length, the width, and the height are all the same measurements, it's all 30. That means that this is a cube. Now, with a cube, all 6 sides are equal. So instead of having to go 2 times area of the front or 2 times area of the side, etc., we can just say that I've got 6 sides that measure, and then you look at the length times the width of the side. Well, the length and the width they're both 30, so it's 6 times 30 times 30. And then it's a lot quicker than having to go 2 times area of the front and all of that. Now, if we go 6 times 30 times 30, here it gives me 5,400 centimeters squared. Now, we need to figure out the area of that slot size, which it is the shape of a rectangle, and the area would be the length times the width of a rectangle, which we learned in the first lesson. The length here is 16, the width is 1. Therefore, the area of that slot is 16 centimeters squared. Now, to find the total area that's going to be painted, we need to take the whole area of the box and subtract the slot, which means that I am going to paint 5,384 centimeters squared. So this one basically just goes up a level as you have more steps that are involved. Now, here's another one. This one says sketch a net of this right rectangular prism. So remember that the net is if you were to cut it and flatten it, what is it going to look like? So you can see that we've got the front here. That's not very wide. Now, sketch means that doesn't have to be perfect. Let's just kind of go about. That looks like this front. And attached to that, if I look at the bottom, it's a little bit longer of a rectangle or wider. And then we go to the back side, which is the same as the front side. And then we have the top, which is the same as the bottom. Now the 2 sides are basically, they would go on the sides of the box here. And then I'll go on this side of the box. Now this one doesn't say in the question that you have to write the dimensions, but you should. So this long length here is the length of the front here, which is 8 centimeters. And then you could tell that, well, this length, I might have made it a little too long, but it's basically longer than it would be the 3 centimeters. And then this short side here would be the 2 centimeters. So then this one would be 3 centimeters here. This length here and this length here would both be 2 centimeters. All right, so now that we have sketched the net, remember this is a net. Now the question is asking us, what is the surface area? So to find our surface area, let's go back to our formula. This is not a cube, it's a rectangular prism, so we have to do the steps. So 2 times the area of the front, and my front is 8 times 2, plus 2 times the area of my side, and the side is 3 times 2, plus 2 times the area of the top, and the top would be 8 by 3. So we calculate that. The 2 times 8 times 2 gives me 32. 2 times 3 times 2 gives me 12. And 2 times 8 times 3 gives me 48. Add all of those together, it gives me 92 centimeters squared. All right, now the next one, this question does not ask me for a net, it just asks me to find the surface area of the rectangular prism. So once again, let's just keep following that formula. 2 times the area of the front. So when we look at the front here, I could see that the width is 4, but the height here, so the length would be 8. 4 times 8 plus 2 times the area of my side. And the side is also 4 by 8. The 4 is written here, so this side here would be 4 as well, so 4 by 8. Plus 2 times the area of my top, which is 4 times 4. So let's do all of our multiplications before we add. 2 times 8 times 4 is 64. This one also gives me 64. You can see that they're the same numbers. And 2 times 4 times 4 would give me 32. Add all of that together, and it's 160 centimeters squared. And that's it. That one is done. We've got a few more. Now, for this one, first thing you could identify is it's another cube. So yay, this one's a little bit easier. It's quicker to calculate the surface area. Because all 6 sides are the same, we just have to go 6 times the length and the width of one side, which all the dimensions are 6, so it will be 6 times 6. The surface area for this one would be 216 centimeters squared. And that's it. The bottom one, we're back to a rectangular prism. So again, it's the same steps. Surface area equals 2 times the area of the front. So the front is 3 by 7 plus 2 times the area of the side. And the side is 7 by 2 plus 2 times the area of the top, which is 2 by 3. Again, the order doesn't matter as to if you choose to do the side first, and then the top, and then the front. It's not a big deal. I always just follow the formula, so I usually start with the front, then the side, then the top. But again, it doesn't matter. You're still going to come up with the same answer. So 2 times 3 times 7 gives me 42. 2 times 7 times 2 gives me 28. And 2 times 2 times 3 gives me 12. Add all of that together, it gives us 82 centimeters squared. Okay, so now we're getting into a little bit of a word problem. Now this will increase the level as well. We don't have the visual, we don't have the picture of the rectangle, but you can very well make it. So let's start with A. A says the dimensions are 4 meters by 3 meters by 10 meters. So say I'm going to draw this. And I could say that this is 4 and this is 3 meters. Now that leaves me with a 10. So that means the 10 must be the length here of my rectangular prism. And just like that. So I made a box. Now, if you don't need the visual, that's great. But if you do need the visual, just draw yourself a box and write out the dimensions. Now, if we follow our formula, the surface area is the 2 times the length of the area of the front, which my front, as you can see, is 3 by 4, plus 2 times the area of the side. And the side here would be 10 times 3, plus 2 times the area of the top, which is 10 times 4. So let's do our multiplications. This first one gives me 24. And then 2 times 10 times 3 gives me 60. And 2 times 10 times 4 gives me 80. Add all those together, and it's 164 meters squared. Now for B, same thing. Gives us the dimensions of 3 by 5 by 8. So it doesn't matter how you draw your box. Let's say that I'm going to say 8 is my longer side here, and let's say this is 3. Then that means that the length here would only be 5. So it's not going to go that far back. But again, it's just a visual for you. So this would be 5. Surface area is 2 times area of the front, 8 times 3, plus 2 times the area of the side, 5 times 3, plus 2 times the area of the top, which is 8 times 5. Let's do our multiplications. This gives me 48, 30, and 80. So the total surface area would be 158 centimeters squared. All right, last example. Again, it's a word problem. Tanya paints the walls of her family room. The room measures 7 meters by 4 meters by 3 meters. The walls need 2 coats of paint. A 4-liter can of paint covers 40 meters squared. How much paint should Tanya buy? Now, this one is a little bit different. Basically, because we're only painting the walls. Now, in a room, how many walls are there? There's only 4. So 2 of my sides that I usually count in my surface area, I will not count. So I'm going to say that those are the dimensions, that the height would be 7. It would make sense that the height of your room would be 7 meters, and then the dimensions would be 4 meters by 3 meters. So it's not a very big room, but we are not going to paint the roof. And if I draw this a little bit more on the inside, we are also not going to paint the floor because the floor probably has carpet. So we're only going to paint the 4 walls. When calculating our surface area, that means that I'm not going to calculate the 2 times the top. We're only going to go 2 times the front, which is 4 by 7, and 2 times the sides, which is 3 by 7. We're not going to do the top or the bottom, so we're not going to include that last part. So the surface area, this first one would be 56, 2 times 4 times 7, plus 42. Add that together, that gives me 98 meters squared. Now this is telling me that if I'm going to paint those 4 walls, I'm going to paint 98 meters squared. But you gotta be careful here. The question says that we need 2 coats of paint. That means I'm going to paint it twice. So if I times this by 2, I'm actually covering 196 meters squared with paint. So I need to buy enough paint to paint 196 meters squared. Now it says that a 4-liter can, so 1 can covers 40 meters squared. Let's divide this by 40 meters squared to find out how many cans of paint that we need. This gives me 4.9. Now you can't buy 4.9 cans, and 4 cans won't be enough. So we have to buy 5 cans of paint to be able to cover the 4 walls twice with paint. So how much paint should Tanya buy? She should buy 5 cans of paint. Now, when it says, what assumptions do you make? Well, just like I said, 4 cans would not be enough. We would need to order 5, as well as another assumption that we can make is that we're not going to paint the ceiling and we're not going to paint the floor. So that's about it. That's all there is to calculating the surface area of a rectangular prism. Now you can go ahead and do your practice.